Because all it did was give control to another organization that slowly built and spread, and now keeps it away from presidents and most of the government. So it's a shadow government. It really is. Whether it's evil in intent, like a lot of people say, I don't know. This podcast was very interesting. But this is what's interesting about Battelle. They're listed as a charitable trust exempt from taxation. And they control like 6 laboratories. How the fuck does that happen? They're making
So who's
bank.
funding that?
Right. Like, how are they able to get away with that when they're making a shitload of money and they're getting huge government contracts for like metal and all this advanced tech? They do a bunch of shit, everything from like the bodies of like, these advanced craft to like chemicals and everything.
But that's where they're getting their money from.
Right.
There's
but
more
why aren't
money.
they taxed?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you're that high up there, I mean, you make deals with people to make things disappear. Right?
Sounds like someone wants a job on the inside.
Yeah.
I'm available for work.
Hire me. Hire me if you get there. I want to know. But they're also famous for producing the 1954 Air Force Project Blue Book study. So they were behind it, which concluded, UFOs are real, whatever.
Okay.
Which I thought was really interesting.
So wait, hold on a second. They are releasing information, but maybe they're not just coming out and being like, "Hey, by the way, we have all this UFO stuff and it's real," because maybe it's not the government that's not releasing it. Maybe they're not allowed to.
Right. Yeah, totally. No, I think so. I think that's probably what's happening. I tried to look for more information on them, but I couldn't. It's like there's 1 or 2 articles about weird anomalous metal they developed in the 50s that we use today, like memory metal with nickel, and there's some weird pattern stuff that I was going to get into, but it was a very boring, dry rabbit hole, so I just jumped out of it immediately and was like, get back to the good stuff, Josh, you fuck. So here's a good story they told on it, another one I want to recount. So Jacques Vallée, he recounts, he was friends with Carl Sagan and Hynek, who ran Project Blue Book, and he recounts a story from Carl Sagan, who was basically like, listen, if there's UFOs, then NORAD is covering the entire country with radar. They have to know. They have to be pinging UFOs all the time. So Carl Sagan goes to Cheyenne Mountain in NORAD and is like, hey guys, show me, you guys must be detecting UFOs everywhere. And they're like, no. Well, that's, no, but it's also not what we call them. And he's like, what? What do you mean? He goes, we call them UCT, uncorrelated targets. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, okay, what does that mean? He goes, well, how many, what does that mean? He goes, well, so like when we're tracking a missile, like, or something coming from another country, it makes 1 dot, then another dot, then a third dot, then we start tracking it. If it's 1 dot or 2 dots, we generally don't, we're not paid to track those. We're paid to track clear enemy aircraft and missiles coming into the country. If something's moving around like crazy, we don't really bother with it because it's obviously not a threat to us. But they have over 10,000 uncorrelated targets per month. Fucking month.
Wow.
So
That's
some of that
wild.
can be birds and weather balloons. But, yeah, sorry, Matt, you want to say something?
No, yeah, it's just crazy that they're... I mean, I get it because they're looking for threats directly, but it's just that they're told to disregard all that other shit that's happening.
Right.
All the unidentified stuff. It's not a threat, so don't worry about it. That makes sense, but... is anyone paying attention to that? I don't know.
Well, he asked that. He's like, who's studying those 10,000? This gets to a larger point I like to bring up, that it's not just happening, whatever is happening, it's happening on a large scale. Like, how many of those 10,000 are actually UFOs? And I remember James Fox was on Mysterious Universe recently talking about how he had a contact that said that, like, all the time there's hundreds of contacts every year on the Atlantic Ocean, something coming out of the ocean and shooting up into the air, like, all the time. So whatever's happening, like, it seems like it's happening very rarely, but it might be happening all the fucking time. And we're just like horses with horse blinders on, and we just barely ever see it because they're just so advanced. Which, okay, we get to some questions. Like, I have my own theories on, like, who they are, where they're coming from, and all this shit. But I wanted to hear what Jacques Vallée and James Fox thought about it.
Oui,
Vallée. Why? So why are they here? Who are, like, why? First we get to who, and I'll get to where. But why? Vallée thinks they're teaching us something. The obvious examples are messages to kids. They even bring up how the Zimbabwe case, which we covered, where aliens basically with telepathy were like, don't fuck up the environment. Technology is going to kill you. The same year, though, the same message was given to a bunch of Chinese citizens in the same kind of situation. That same year, the same stuff, the same aliens, the same thing, like Close Encounter, where they told them the same thing. There's other major examples of that, which I thought were really interesting. But Valet goes on and surmises more. Like, it's not just that simple. It's like whatever they're doing is perfecting the consciousness and is affecting culture in a profound way, from their customs and their values and everything. And that gets into, he didn't get into it, but that gets into religion. That gets into the past. And it gets into like what they're trying to teach us. I don't know. I just thought it was fascinating that he said it works on culture on a deeper level, changing our behavior and local traditions. And he didn't go really specifically. He brought up Brazil for a second, but he didn't go into it. I thought that was cool. So who are these things, right? In this podcast, they only bring up the Greys. Now, the Greys are my least exciting, least fun aliens, definitely to talk about. But there's a couple things. But there's some things that were interesting that he brought up. You know, the Greys clearly look exactly like ancient cave art from Australia. The Matt, you can pronounce this before I butcher it. The Wandinja caves, the indigenous people. If you look up cave art of aliens, it's all Australia, and this fucking thing begins with a W. It's fucking Greys. I hate both of you. I'm looking at you right now, and I fucking hate both of you. You know, you're making fun of me.
But I'll look it up.
But the one thing
Keep talking. I'll look it up.
But one thing about the Greys, and they bring it up in the podcast in a book I've read called The Day After Roswell by Philip Corso. I think that's his name, Philip Corso.
Yeah, that's right.
He brings up that, well, he was a government guy who was on the inside who ran a program studying this material, supposedly. And he brought up the Greys, and he said they dissected the Greys. They had no reproductive organs, and it looks like they're biological robots. And they're designed to survive space and time, and whoever created them probably is a true alien, and these things are just worker bees. I know we've heard that over and over again, but I just thought it was interesting in context with the Valet and Fox talking about it. It gives it more credibility to me. I could see that. That actually gives me, I don't know, I like that better than they're a race that's always fucking with us. Maybe they're just being used by other races, because we know from our own experience that Greys are associated with other alien beings a lot. So clearly they're being used by them, like in the Travis Walton case, for example. So where are these things coming from? Valet will not say they're not coming from a bunch of super smart humans smarter than us somewhere on the planet. He goes, I can't rule that out 100%, though it's unlikely. He does bring up they could be from space, or they're interdimensional, like we talk about. So he really just says they could be from a different room 5 minutes ahead of us or 10 minutes ahead of us. Rogan even brings up gray aliens look like we would if we evolved for millions of years. And they could just be from a different timeline. And that's where
I really appreciate his stuff, is that he really is open to that whole interdimensional theory, which I'm pretty big on. I like that one.
Yeah, he might be the OG
by the way,
of
just it's the Wandjina.
The Wandjina, yeah. Thank you.
Wandjina tribe.
How the fuck? Who fucking spells
And
words though? Wandjina? It's Wandigna. Like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah,
if I was in
Wandjina.
kindergarten, I would never pronounce that. That's ridiculous.
Wandjina. Yeah, I mean, that's easy.
Indigenous
See, Melissa got it.
Fucking
Well, I got it. And I'm a girl.
Oh, dear.
Okay, hold on. Before you keep going on this trail where we talk about disclosure and
I'm
who
done.
are they, I'm still going to go back to the article at the beginning of this podcast, and I'm going to say, okay, great. Like, this is all stuff we've heard before, right? Everything we're talking about, we've talked about before. But maybe it's not in the hands of the people on this planet for when they are going to reveal themselves. And every time they show us lights in the sky, or somebody gets abducted, they get probed, or all that kind of stuff, it's just like it's constantly building the narrative until they feel we're ready for them just to appear.
So they're controlling the narrative, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's a different way to look at disclosure. I mean, we're always looking at, like, who are these, military people trying to, like, stop us from, I mean, maybe they are working with the Galactic Federation. Now sound as crazy as the guy in the article.
they signed a document, so there's nothing they can do, Melissa. It's on a piece of paper with someone's signature, so there's fuck all they can do now. It's done. It's the law.
I don't want to go to court tomorrow.
Earth law.
That sounds like it sucks.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Josh. We just hijacked your...
Yeah, sorry. Okay, go on. Sorry.
No, that was pretty good, guys. That was pretty much the end. I just had some random notes to connect earlier, just saying that Harry Reid was interviewed, and apparently the vast majority of evidence hasn't been looked at, which is, we kind of know that. And a lot of the data points that Valet brought up, we talk about, just like the story from Kyle, like missing time, time slows down. They clearly have an ability to manipulate consciousness, and they can control human consciousness and create an experience. So who knows what shape or form they're really in. I mean, they're God. They describe God. That's what he says. He goes, they're omnipresent. They can take many different shapes and forms. They can mess with your consciousness. They can do anything. They can float through a wall. The phenomenon, they are so advanced that it seems like magic. I mean, they're God. There's no way around it. Like, I don't really know, but if someone had a gun to my head and they were like, is all religion based off aliens? I'd be like, yes, and then hopefully not get shot in the head. Because it just seems like they're shaping our culture, and Valet says that. It just all makes sense to me. And also, Jesus and other religious figures are really are part of UFO experiences. People report seeing those figures in the UFO experience, which is another thing of, like, are they messing with our consciousness to show us what we want to see? And it gets so bizarre and complicated, but I think it's like a technology thing. If we understood the tech and the nature of reality better, all of it would be science and not magic or religion.
But I mean, just to follow up with that, I mean, the whole ancient aliens. I used to produce the first 5 seasons. That was our whole goal, was to say that every religious figure, every religion was either created by aliens or those people were aliens. We just made it in a crafty way where nobody got offended, and that show's still on today. And there's a reason why it's still on, because that's the message. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it resonates.
Totally.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, Melissa, did you ever talk to Jacques Vallée in any of those shows?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Not the first 5 seasons. I'm not sure if he's been on any of the. It's like in the 27th season or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe have.
I'm going to guess he
but
probably
I
wasn't
haven't
on that show.
He probably would not do that show.
Yeah.
So, Matt, do you have something for us tonight? I think you went. Did you go interdimensional
just to bring up
tonight?
the rear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me. You want to throw on a strap on and take it to the rear?
Woo!
Oh boy. Lube up, everyone, because we're going in. Oh boy. So, here's what I did, guys.
Okay.
When I read that article and he was talking about, and same thing, when I was listening to the Joe Rogan interview with Jacques Vallée and James Fox, there was this notion of, especially with the article, of there being a point in time where humans are ready. Like some point, I don't know what that is or how we get to that point, but humans are, all right, we passed the threshold, we're ready to go, guys. We're ready to... And I was like, what is that point? There's some sort of plan happening here, obviously.
Right.
Who's in charge of this plan?
What do I got to do, man?
Right. So it reminded me of some stuff I read when I was going through a few episodes back now, more than a few. The book The Threat by David Jacobs, Dr. David Jacobs.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of some of, he's transcribed throughout the book a bunch of his hypnosis sessions with purported abductees. And a lot of these people, and this is where it's interesting, that unless he's directly leading, he says he doesn't do this, but unless he's directly leading the questions into these abductees and kind of leading them where they go, they all seem to be telling the same story, similar to the same story of some sort of agenda that's going on behind the scenes. And so I dug into the back half of this, and there was an interesting part where they kind of referenced something that was going to happen. And so here's some of the lead up to, I don't know, he doesn't ever give a final conclusion to what this plan is, but there's something, it's hinting at something a little nefarious maybe. So here we go. So he says, some abductees indicate that they themselves will smooth the way for, in capitals, the change. They do not know specifically what they will do, but they think they will know when the time comes. So, and then he goes into a number of these kind of, like I said, the hypnosis sessions. So this one's from Pam. And she was told that when the world changes, they will be called upon, her and people like her, these abductees, to help people adapt to this new reality, which was interesting. So here's some of the transcript. She says, "They're telling me things of the future." And Jacques says, "What are they telling you?" "I can't tell if they're putting me on or what,